Hi everyone! Today we are making a loom knit boot cuff, and we'll start out using our 24 peg loom with some chunky yarn. Make a slip knot. Then we'll go ahead and attach it by the anchor peg. I always go to the right of the peg. So we're going to start by making the slip knot, and now we're going to do our cast on, which is called the E-wrap cast on. We are making tiny E's over each peg. Now I loom to the right, you can loom to the left if you wish. For some reason it's always been more comfortable for me to do it this way. I'm not really sure why, but either way is okay. So I'm going to make little tiny E's all the way around the peg, back to the anchor peg, and then I'm going to do another set of the same thing. And this again is called the E-wrap cast on. This pattern is made for a child. However, if an adult that you'd like to make this for has really small calf muscles, you can also use this for them. I myself can't use this loom for my legs. It's too small, so I just go up a loom. Now if you do go up a loom size, here we're going to start our second row. So we're going to make a second row of little E's, starting from the anchor peg and working our way around again. So if you do go up, if you're going to make this for an adult, you'll want to go up a loom size. You'll want to make sure, if you're going to follow this exact pattern, to have a loom that has an even amount of pegs on it. I can also tell you at the end of this video how to adjust the pattern. So here we're going to take the bottom over the top. So the first little E's, as you see right here, just hook that on your yarn tool and flip it over. This is called knitting over. And we're going to do this for each peg around the loom. So it's called knitting off, is what it's technically called. So you're taking the bottom loop over the top, and you're doing this for each peg all the way around the loom. I'm trying to give you a good view of exactly what I'm doing. Again, we're just knitting off, and then we will start right here. We're going to start our first row. What I like to do is, here we're doing 2 knit, 2 purl. 2 knit, 2 purl, and we're doing this around the loom. So I like to pull up the pegs that I'm going to purl as a little reminder. You could also use washi tape or stitch markers. So here we're going to start. We're going to do 2 knits, and now we're going to do 2 purls. Two knits, this is our pattern immediately after we do our cast on. So as soon as you get back to the anchor peg, you're going to immediately start with 2 knits. This is our pattern for the boot cuff. It's 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl. You're going to do this until you get the length of boot cuff that you want. Some prefer longer, some prefer smaller. So I'm not going to give you an exact length because it's going to be up to you. It's your preference on whoever you're making it for, how big you want the boot cuff. So just continue to knit, to purl, to knit, to purl. Now I had talked about if you have an odd number of pegs on your loom, then you'll want to do a knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl instead of 2 and 2, because it won't look the same if you try and do 2 knit and 2 purl. The pattern won't look the same. So it will not look the same, but you can still make a boot cuff that way using a knit and a purl. Same idea, just a little different because I know as a beginner I didn't understand that. I'm like, why is it not looking like the picture? And it was because my loom had an odd number of pegs, so it's not going to look the same if I'm doing 2 knit, 2 purl, and I have 31 pegs. It doesn't look the same. So that is just what I recommend. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You could do E-wraps the whole way. It's all your preference. So this is basically it. Continue doing this until you get the size that you want, and then we will do the bind off. Okay, so we are finishing up here, and then we are going to start the basic bind off. So we're going to wrap the first 2, just like this. We're going to go to the left of the anchor peg, so we're going to knit over 1, knit over 2. Now don't do this too tight. Now take the second stitch off the peg and place it on the first stitch. Again, you don't want to do this too tight. On other projects you do, and then go ahead and knit over, and then we're going to remove this stitch and put it on that other peg that we took off. Now we're going to do the same thing. Knit. We're not going to knit both this time. That's just how you start out. Then remove the stitch, place it on that peg, and again, we're not going to pull our working yarn too tight. Remove that stitch. The reason why we don't want to pull too tight is because we need this to get over a calf muscle. So we want to make it kind of loose, but not too loose, but firm enough to stay up. So I'm going to give you a real close view here. Okay, so we're wrapping to the left, knitting over, removing the stitch we just knitted over, place it on the peg to the right, and knit over that peg. Now we're removing that stitch and placing it on the empty peg to the left. And we're going to repeat this process the entire way around until we get back to where we started from at the anchor peg. Alright, so we're moving our way along. It should be looking like this. Nice and neat. Now we are on our last 2 pegs here, so we're going to continue that process of knitting over and removing that peg, or removing that stitch, placing it on the stitch beside it, and then knitting over. Now we're going to remove the cuff from the loom, just like that. Very simple. Now we're going to cut our yarn. We're going to sew in the ends. We're going to take this yarn and knot it off. And then go ahead and thread your darning needle and sew your stitches together. At the top, I compare this to a slip stitch, as if you were a crocheter, just bringing the 2 pieces together as one. That's how the easiest way I can compare it, just like a slip stitch, and then we're just going to hide our yarn. And after you do that, that is pretty much it. You can add any embellishments that you would like. Some people add buttons, pom-poms, any type of thing that makes your boot cuff look cute, or you can just leave it plain. For this boot cuff, I am going to add a button, and that is going to wrap up our project. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up.